Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
in today's episode 201 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/2for1 studios. Guys, it's the best place to consume all the content. And if you didn't know, listeners, and let's be honest, you probably did not, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books. They don't have just one; they have lots of them.
That's good.
Collectibles.
I think that would be hard to sustain a business with one comic.
It's one issue of Action Comics #1, $5.6 million. They did actually have Amazing Fantasy 15 in there for a little bit, and
what does that one retail for or resale for?
depends on the grade. But if you have let's say a good grade, you're looking at a couple mil, no big deal, couple mil.
That's not a big deal. I agree.
You can buy.
I'm very familiar with a few mills. I see them all the time in my bank account, in my receipt, when
Your
I buy
wallets.
stuff. Exactly.
Yeah, under your bed,
Very familiar with mills.
in the pillowcases. Yeah. If you buy one page of a low grade copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, it's one page slabbed. Then it's I don't know, a couple grand.
I didn't know they sold single pages of comic books. I did not.
And they're slabbed. It's called
Wow.
instead of getting a grade, you get a PG for page.
Interesting.
So, but that's only for the big boys like those. It's only for the big boys.
Wow.
I guess you could PG anything actually. It'd be it'd be the worst investment ever.
I'm
On
just
some
gonna
of
start
them.
doing that to the encyclopedia or some shit like that. And see
Sure.
if anyone will
Yeah.
buy it. Be great.
It would be great. And they have graphic novels and of course special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Kapow. Daniel, it's 201. We're in the 200s now. We're getting old. We're getting two centennial.
Indeed.
We're getting there. We're on the road to 241, as they say.
Yes.
As
indeed.
they always, yeah. We're
They keep
retiring
telling me
after 241.
Keep telling yourself that.
There will be no 242. And we are talking part 2 of season 2 of Invincible. Yeah, I've got thoughts on it.
Me too.
I'll just give you mine real quick. Okay, it was really hard, as it has always been with Invincible, to have to wait a couple months between part 1 and part 2 of Invincible season 2. Thankfully, I think we were both surprised to get that it was going to be in May, or not May, in March, basically, right, or whatever it was, where it's we're getting this much sooner than we thought we would get. Yeah, so we were okay, we don't have to wait a year. We have to wait a couple months. And I kind of think while that anticipation was it's always great to oh shit, I gotta wait, and then we were excited to watch it. I do think for the story they were telling, it might have hurt them a little bit having that gap. For someone like me who watches everything multiple times, and I can, and I'm reading shit and watching people talk about stuff, listening to my own podcast of myself talking about stuff, I know what's going on. But I can also look at it and be yeah, this probably hurts the general audience. And it hurt me a little bit too, because I'm okay, there's some things here in threads that were from 6-7 months ago now that are now rearing their head back up. And it feels a little disjointed because of that.
Yeah.
And it feels like it would have benefited from a straight season run through. And I do think ultimately this season is a little more convoluted than season 1. I think season 1 was a little straighter in what its path was.
Absolutely.
That being all said, after every episode, I'm damn it, I want to watch the next one. There's some good shit in each episode. And so just like right now, I'm very upset that I have to wait for all the way to season 3. And it's going to be really hard for me not to read about what's going on or read the whole story before then. So it's really good. I'm not saying it's better or worse than season 1. It might be worse a little bit just because we don't have some of the emotional stuff happening in season 1. But there's also threads that they really were dropping this season, I feel that didn't even get resolved or even talked about at the end. And it kind of feels like this might be the kind of show where I prefer a season drop like Netflix versus I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. I'm so torn by it. I love the water cooler talk. I love that we get to talk about it every couple of weeks. But then also, I'm like, man, I think for the viewing for this kind of show, particularly, it might work best. It's like an 8 episode drop. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. I think the midseason break hurt it for me, and it wasn't even just like I lost interest. I just lost momentum with the show, and like by the time it's coming back, I'm already in the middle of like 2 other shows right now. We were in the middle of Shogun, I think, at the time, and then I don't remember what else we were watching at the time, but we were kind of invested in these other storylines, so it was like it's kind of this feeling of like, oh, Invincible's back. I want to watch it, but I'm kind of interested in what we're already doing. You know what I mean? It'd be like, we don't like watching too many shows at the same time, especially like serialized shows, just because it's too much to keep up with or too much to stay equally invested in.
Yeah.
Typically, we like one thriller, drama, action, something, and then like have a comedy we watch on the side in between. It's like you can just pick it up and put it down, right? And so for this,
your method.
So for this, it was just like difficult to want to come back. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. And we didn't even watch it like the first day it was available. I think we waited like till the weekend or something. It wasn't like we just had to drop everything and watch it, which is unfortunate because I believe the show, like in terms of like the production value, the style, the acting, all of it deserves to be like unmissable entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Where you're just like, as soon as it's there, I'm watching it as soon as I can because I want to consume this. And I think the midseason break really hurt it because of that. I mean, the fact that the second part of the season literally picks up seconds after the last episode ended was like an illustration of like, wow, like, yeah, this feels weird. This feels weird that like it feels like we should have waited and watched the first 4 when these were already out. Like it would have helped if there was like a time gap in the story too. Like that would have even that could have solved a bunch of the problem. If it was just like, oh well, it's been 2 months in real life and it's been 2 months in Invincible World, and we're kind of using that to make it feel more natural. That would have worked, I think, a lot better. It wouldn't have fixed the problem, but it would have worked better. And overall, like I agree with you. I don't think the season was as tight narratively or arc wise as season 1. I mean, season 1 in some ways is just really perfect. The first episode tells you how the season's going to end. Essentially, it sets up the pieces for the last episode with episode 1, with Omni-Man killing the Guardians of the Globe, and so this is leading up to some kind of conflict between him and his son. The pieces are very clearly there. They're not trying to hide it from you, and so you have this wonderful build up and kind of like you're wondering, when's it going to happen, when's it going to crack, when's it going to find out, like there's all these things, but you always know where we're going to get to, and you're always anticipating that because you know how big of a moment that's going to be. And we didn't have that kind of structure with this one. We had Angstrom leave. I feel like they kind of tried to, right? Like the first episode was like Angstrom Levy's origin story kind of episode, and that's where we get to, which is
Sterling K. Brown, who was
fantastic. He was fantastic in his role. He's so good, but he nailed, like when Sterling K. Brown is like yelling emotionally, I just think he's great at it. He just comes across very genuine, but also just very like, I don't know, rabid. I don't know what the right word is.
I think he's one of like the best working actors, and I don't understand why he doesn't get more love than he already gets.
Yeah,
like I want him in maybe he doesn't want to be, but I want him to be like in a big blockbuster movie. I want him to be the action here. I want him to be a Marvel character. Like I want something from him where I get to like enjoy him like on a pop culture level.
Wasn't he in that fiction movie? Didn't you watch that?
Yeah, he was nominated for Academy Award for it.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know how big of a role he had in it.
It's decent. Sure. I mean, it's definitely bigger than most supporting. It's bigger than Downey's supporting role.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Screen time wise, I think.
Yeah, no, he's great. I mean, he can do serious, he can do funny, he can do everything.
He's so good, dude.
He's fantastic. So he was great in that, but like it didn't have the same, like the final battle at the end of the season with Angstrom was good. Like I was locked in, I wasn't bored, but it didn't have nearly the punch of like the battle with Omni-Man. You know what I mean? And maybe that's just like the nature of this show, is that like, to me, this show is right what we said. It's all about Mark and his dad. That's what this show is about. And the first season has to set up that journey for them, right? And it does. And until we get to the end of the show when we're concluding all of that arc and tying that all up, that may just be kind of like, you know, the nature of how you tell the story is like you can't always have Omni-Man versus Invincible every season. It won't, it'll get old. You know, it will make the end less impactful if we're just constantly rehashing that moment.
This season is that though, but on an ideological level. But I just think that they didn't do enough.
Yeah.
They just didn't do enough to. I think the time gap is a big part, but they just didn't do it enough. I mean, the whole thing is we said it in our first episode of the season. It is, and it's even like the thumbnail is Mark looking down at his reflection of his father in the blood. It's, will I become my father? Will I become, or do I have the capacity to become my father? Whatever. And I think those are obviously great questions to ask to challenge your superhero with. I don't know. There's just certain things like. It feels like this season was like part one, you know what I'm saying, of a fuller season.
It does, because it feels like it started arcs. Season 1 did start arcs that aren't finished yet, but it also had self-contained arcs. It also had like there was an arc for Mark to go through the season, and this was also the beginning of a larger arc, right? And I don't think we had as many good self-contained arcs in this one. There were some good ones. I really enjoyed how they developed Mark's relationship with his girlfriend. I liked that episode where he's asking his mom about what it was like for her and his dad when he was a superhero. Like, and I think they did a natural way of. I'm assuming that relationship isn't over. I mean, it just seems like it would be a classic one to be like, oh, it doesn't work, and then later they find a way to work it out. And it also feels like the show is too much pointing Adam, Eve, and Mark together that I'm like, I think they're gonna fake us out with that kind of thing. It's like the show is too much positioning them as like, oh, they meet all each other's needs. They're both superheroes. It would be perfect, and I think they're gonna like.
Which is heartbreaking when she's like, tell her whatever, and he doesn't, you know, which is all that stuff's good, you know.
Yes.
And I guess we could talk about just a few things here. I mean, it felt like here's one thing that kind of I was like, what's happening here, which is like the temple and the two like archaeology women. You know what I'm talking about? With like the temple.
Was that first
and like
half or second half of the season?
It happened in the second half for sure. Like, but we had like two different two different little scenes with this that I have no idea what it's about. Yeah, it's like they're in an like they're digging like in his temple, and there's like this big like the monster wakes up and he's like, I'm gonna, you know, I gotta control a man vessel.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, well, we're not men, we're both women. Like that, I have no idea what that's, you know what I'm saying? Like that's something it feels like.
I do remember that now, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, when is that episode? I'm like trying to look for it in the synopsis because I'm like, what?
I don't think there's anything connected to that in the season, and at least not right now. So like my point is, like, if you're going to have something with that, it's so weird to set up like two scenes that are not connected to anything, that have no payoff, that potentially will be paid off in season 3. And so I'm like, if it was just, I mean, maybe it's how it happens in the comic book or whatever. And I know they've changed the order of things for the flow of television, but that's a case in point where it's like, well, just have that be the opening of season 3 and then have those threads play in season 3. I don't understand setting those up. So I think there's just odd choices sometimes. And there's even the thing about like Cecil resurrecting the robot, like the assistant guy, and then even the other hero being like resurrected, and like he was his partner, and how they're like, you know, he just doesn't know who he is, and he's going to commit suicide, all these kind of things. I kind of thought, oh, this is I was like, because I mentioned like, is this going to pay off at all? And I mentioned this in the previous podcast. They're kind of, and it's going to pay off for anything. It's like, and then at one point in the show, I was like, oh man, maybe Mark got beat up so fucking bad by Omni-Man, he's like part robot, and no one's told him yet. I kind of thought like maybe this is where that's leading. But then nothing happened. I mean, there was that scene, and I guess the idea is that trying to tell this one small nugget of like, you know, you're not what's on the inside. You're the things that you do, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so, and I get that, but I feel like it's just kind of weird to have these kind of things that's unrelated to Mark.
Well, I don't mind having these little arcs because I do think the show has done that most of the time. Like we'll just be with Guardians of the Galaxy for a while, and they don't have they'll interact with Mark, but they're not really doing things with Mark as much.
Sure.
Or we're popping over to something Cecil's doing, or we fucking go with Alan the Alien for a while in an episode, and like eventually, yes, that will lead up to interacting with Mark, but in the moment, it might not. And so that part I'm used to. I don't think this season wrapped up any of those mini arcs nearly as well as season
I think it's the
one.
problem. I feel like they were kind of always leading back to Mark, and I feel like we're not there with some of these things
Like
yet.
it almost feels like this is the first half of what season 2 will be. Season 3 will be the second half of all these stories.
That's how I kind of feel like with it.
I agree, and
but I could be wrong. I mean, again, there's things that happen in season 1.
To some degree, is that just the nature of like comic books too, of just like until they end the series, everything is just leading to the next thing.
Well, 100%. Where this is the weird thing about Skybound, which is Robert Kirkman's company, Walking Dead, Invincible, these other things, they actually have endings. Whereas Spider-Man, all these, every other, probably 99% of comic books, they don't have endings. The shit that happened in 1965 is part of Spider-Man's canon.
Sure.
So it is like exhausting to like try to know everything, to know it all, and to keep up with everything, and to like, I mean, Spider-Man's turning into the Green Goblin in a couple months. You know what I'm saying? So there's always shit happening that's changing the status quo. You'll never believe what happens to Spider-Man next week.
Right. They've always got to be upping the stakes, right? Well, I was gonna say, I think the example you talked about, what Cecil's assistant, I'm blanking on his name.
I don't know.
But like he kind of goes to this arc of like, he thinks he is considering killing himself because he doesn't know how to handle this information. And then all of a sudden it feels like out of nowhere, he's able to just talk this kid out of doing the same thing. And I was like, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that like through helping someone else with his trauma, he's able to deal with his own. That makes sense to me. And I think that's a interesting idea. That's a thing that works. You didn't give me enough in between to feel like he earned it. Like I don't feel like he just went from being suicidal to helping someone, and now he's fine. And it's just like, I think to me it sounds like Rush. It sounds like we had this idea for a cool arc, we didn't have time to do it like we wanted, and that would very much fall in line with what is seemed to be the story behind the scenes of this whole season, of just mismanagement of resources, of time, of something. Something is not going right. At least wasn't going right for this season. They've claimed that they've fixed all this, and we're going to get a season a year after this. So like, if that's true, fine. Most of my problems with this season are probably fixed. Like, it's interesting that most of our problems this season do still feel like they stem from behind the scenes things of like, this feels rushed. This feels like we didn't need a break. This feels like the first half of it almost feels like this should have been season 2 should have been 16 episodes, or I don't know, maybe you rewrite it in a way that makes it feel more self-contained. But either way, it just does feel like the acting has not gone down a bit. It's amazing. The animation, great. The action, great. The storyline's all interesting and fun and weird and cool. But it's just that like the execution of all that is just a little off this season. It's just not hitting at every level that like season 1 was.
I still haven't watched the Adam Eve spinoff episode yet.
Is it only one episode?
I think so, yeah. And so here's an idea.
It's good.
Where it's something like where you're peppering in those things with like I can't think of his name either.
Oh, yeah.
The assistant. Why don't you make that kind of like a Last of Us episode 3 situation, or an Adam Eve episode where it's like this is just an episode about this guy, how he's learning this and how he comes at the other end of it. It's an hour and a half. It's an hour. Basically, it's like a small mini movie about this one character. And then you kind of know more about him. You get to see all that. You know, I don't know. It's just an idea.
No, you're
I want that just kind of tightens up the rest of the season and lets you do these but also I understand you're padding this, not padding. You're trying to say something. It's got a point to it. And I like the sentiment behind it a lot.
Yes.
I just think that there's just times where I was like, maybe it's a good thing, but I was just like wanting to be with Mark, or I thought it was kind of odd to have Omni-Man as in the little as he was, or too much. I don't know if I had too little Omni-Man or too much in the second half of the season.
Well, I think to me the most interesting part about this season was Omni-Man's development and kind of Mark and his mom's reaction to that. Omni-Man showing signs of remorse, and like not because I believe him, but because I don't know if I can believe him. And to me, I think
it's kind of odd. Yeah,
it is odd in an interesting way to me. of way of like, he is showing signs of remorse that make you want to like him, but then you just remember half of the stuff he just did, and you're like, "How I can't like this guy." And I feel like that's exactly how Mark and his mom are, and that's such a complicated emotional place that I think is just really interesting, and honestly, just parallels a lot with life. Like, if you have a parent or a child that does something horrendous, there's still part of you that loves them, even though this thing, and you've got to figure out how you're going to address that relationship under these new circumstances. I think that's interesting. I don't think they did enough with it this season. I think, again, that feels like an arc they're setting up that's going to play out over maybe the rest of the show, right?
Well, hearing you talk, I feel like we are getting the amount of information, like you said, through Mark and his mom's lens. But even when we're with Omni-Man by himself, and I feel like to kind of fix how I'm feeling is I wanted to see more of like Omni-Man making these decisions to be with this another woman, to have this other kid on this other planet. I think I want to see more of that so I could maybe have more empathy for him. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it was just kind of maybe a big problem too. I need to go back and just watch all of season 2, or just season 1 and 2, just back to back to back to back.
Sure.
I think that might help me a little bit with the whole thing.
Yeah.
But here's a little extra side thing. I kept expecting maybe this is just because maybe they did it because I was expecting this, but like in the final battle with Angstrom, like little baby Mark, Purple Mark, was going to do like his Superman Returns moment where he's gonna grab him
Jack from the Invincibles, right?
Yes, quit fucking with my family. I'm also superpowered, and you have no idea because you think I'm a baby. Never happened, which I don't really particularly like those moments in shows, but it's just kind of like it's another thing where the baby feels like another thing where it's like this loose end that's like nothing is coming from that this season.
Well, you're right. It just feels like we're halfway through. We're halfway through a bunch of arcs. And I think even with Angstrom, you bringing up him, he didn't feel very connected to the season. He felt like he bookended it, but it didn't feel like anything in between really ever had anything to do with him. None of the other arcs that were going on fed into his arc or had really anything to do with the final battle between him and Mark. And so there's just a feeling of disjointedness. All of these stories and these things, these ideas that they're playing with are good in their essence and are interesting. Yeah. It's just, again, it's the execution. It's the pacing. It's all of that. I mean, even the fact that the end of the show is basically what it's Alan being captured by the Viltrumites and then Nolan saying he misses his wife and he feels guilty for what he did. And like, I find that incredibly interesting, but that's just such a weird place to end a season. That's not it's an in medias res kind of place to end the season. There wasn't a conclusion to anything going on with Nolan. There wasn't a conclusion to anything going on with Alan. The only conclusion that really had to do with Mark was there was at least I don't know about a conclusion, but his relationship entered a new phase. And so there was kind of a fulfillment of the arc that relationship was going on. But other than that, and like, it's just...
Well, I mean, I can see ending a season in media res, as you put it, that's normal, especially like you're trying because well, I mean, it's at least a cliffhanger is normal, right? That's very normal. Like ending on a cliffhanger, you have to wait 6 months to see what did everyone just survive the explosion? Like
but
Lost did it
wasn't a cliffhanger this episode. Like what arc didn't leave like that?
No, I know, but I'm also saying like I think for me, like when he says I miss my wife, obviously my brain tells me, okay, next season's gonna be like him potentially getting to a conversation with his wife, right? But I do think that I agree with you. I think it's a misplaced to do it. And with Langstrom, I think every episode should have started with like an alternate Mark version of like Langstrom, or like someone dealing with an alternate Mark version. Because I think we did that in the opening of season 2.
And we did that. We did that
every episode. Like that'd be the cold open for every episode. Like here's an evil version of Mark and like what Mark could become.
Yeah.
And then you know what I'm saying? Like, and then kind of build up Langstrom's journey.
This is an illustration of the issue is like, I don't even kind of like remember what, like every season, or they've done this so far, like the name Invincible becomes different every time and it kind of builds to like a final look of the logo. I'm like, I don't even remember what the fucking look was, what they were doing to the logo all season. Like,
it's like weird black. Because Well, it's weird because it started out like everything was broken, and it's like the
Yeah.
pieces are breaking away to like become. I was like, oh, we're gonna be he's gonna become like a new hero, like basically like a
Okay.
reborn hero. It's what
Sure.
I kept thinking.
Yeah.
But the ending felt very sour and or dour and
Yeah.
like not optimistic. And I was like, well, the logo was
Yeah.
like optimistic, like we were building the
Yeah.
optimism.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yes.
it
Yeah.
totally was the opposite of that. And I was like, well, why are we? If anything, if it should have been the opposite. This season should have been like a pretty looking logo,
Breaking
and it
more.
should have been
Yeah.
breaking more as we went through. And I was like, why did we
Yes.
do that? So I don't under. Maybe it's just trying to throw me off again, but
No, that just feels
also
like
weird.
it just feels like what it feels like is they had really good ideas and they didn't have enough time to make the most of them, and so they had to rush things and they had to cut corners. And like
Which is
that
weird because they had so much time. You
I mean,
know,
the
they
only
had
thing
more time than
there
anyone.
was a strike. There was a strike. They couldn't work during the strike, right?
Gosh, the episodes were surely written before the strike.
Right, but animation wise, at least, probably couldn't work. Actually, I don't know. I don't
I
fucking
know
know.
they're
Um,
animators. I mean, like you can't have the actors record if you need to do that, but
sure, sure, yeah. And you
which I
could.
guess
Well,
you
the
could.
directors were on strike, so I guess I don't.
Yeah, very shortly the
There is
directors
a
from strike.
portion of strike that I'm sure interrupted their process some, but that does not excuse the delay that we had, and it doesn't explain just kind of the messiness of the season. Now, I do want to say, I feel like the only thing we talked about this season, this episode, is about how much the problems with it. Just like you
Oh,
said, I
I
want the
started
next
with it.
season tomorrow, and
I
I want
started
to
with I
watch
think
it
it's good.
now.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like part of the reason I think we feel so strongly about the weaknesses of the season is because we like the potential is so there, and the fact that despite the weaknesses, I still enjoyed the season. But it's like that level of like, but it could have been this. We got this.
Well,
I eat this every day. But man, if you gave me all the, it's almost like, it almost feels a little bit, it's not, it almost feels a little bit like the Batman, where it's like, man, every piece is here for a perfect movie. Everything. It's just they don't come together. And it's like, it's not
yeah,
to
but
that degree with Invincible Season 2. I think Invincible Season 2 comes together better than the Batman, but it's still a little bit of that feeling of like, oh, we just kind of missed the mark at an organizational level, at a some sort of like management level. Something kind of went wrong here.
yeah. Well, again, I think it's just like it's chapter syndrome where this is
Sure.
where the first season is easy. You can kind of look at that arc and be like, okay, we know we're going to start with Mark getting powers.
Sure.
We're going to end with his dad being this.
Yeah.
We're in that weird phase where like there's a lot of threads being built up. We know a big war is coming. We know these other big like the Viltrumites are on the horizon,
Yeah.
and we're trying to it's like I see, it's harder to end the season. You almost think like the season should have ended in some ways with like Mark finding his dad on the planet and then having to fight
Sure.
those other Viltrumites. Like that's
Sure.
like the natural place you want to end
You're
that.
right. Halfway through, that feels like a much bigger moment, and I'm more like, yeah, that could have been the ending of the season, and that would have felt big enough to feel like, okay, yeah, that's a finale. That's a finale moment, like
Yeah.
kind of. And that's another. The thing is, that's a huge step in the journey of Mark and Nolan. Like that moment is like a giant way forward on the trajectory of their arc. Like the giant moment is when they fight. That is like the huge big first moment of their arc, and the next moment is when he finds him again. And so it's like it does feel weird that we got that moment halfway through the season.
Well, hey, here's me being Robert Kirkman 2.0. If it was me, I would have flipped that. I would have had the Angstrom stuff in the first 4 episodes, and then basically have Mark still kill Angstrom, and then Mark is dealing with, am I my dad, until he meets his dad and he decides to do something different. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how
How'd you just fix it that easy? How'd you just fix the season that easy?
I don't know. It seems like it's pretty not that
it
bad though, right?
It just seems like relatively a simple change. And I mean, the difference is like Mark's baby brother isn't in the scene, isn't in the battle with Angstrom, but I don't think like he said, it's not like he saved the day.
He didn't do anything.
Like they just kind of kept, they totally were like pushing in on him, and like they were trying to like signal that this might happen.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and
You just make it Mark's girlfriend, and instead of her being threatened by the other
yeah,
girl, she's threatened by Angstrom now.
perfect. And
You know,
that's why they break up. Boom,
and
boom.
that's why they break up. And so then Mark's broken up with her, and then he has to go and fucking save this village, and then ends up being his
Yeah.
dad's there.
I will say the moment where the Viltrumite shows up when they're on the date is great. That's
I
a
mean, again, it's
fantastic
yeah,
like
yeah.
moment of tension. The battle with her afterwards, loved all of it. That kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
no, all that was good. Like, I mean, again, it's having like just having her hand on her neck, and she's like, I can't move, like that. All that stuff, you're like, fuck yeah,
And
you
it
know?
was the perfect way to like their relationship arc and like, oh, we think we found a way to make this dynamic work. We just don't have enough time. And then it's like, oh wait, no, that's not the real threat of this relationship. Actually, the real threat is his enemies killing you. And it's like I just thought that was a great way to it worked really well. Yeah.
I agree, but you know, again, it feels like the Viltrumite stuff is like peppered in there, and it's like it just felt like there was no overarching bad guy or this season or something. And on
No.
top of that, in the last episode, which I love seeing Agent Spider, and you know I love seeing that in the
Agent
comics.
Spider.
In the comics, it was
Oh.
in the comics it
Yes.
was actually Spider-Man. Like they actually worked with Marvel and said, "Can we do Spider-Man?" They said, "Yeah," and so they actually
That's
Spider-Man
wild.
crossed over with
Because that's when
Invincible.
he's
Like,
visiting all the universes that Angstrom went to, right?
yeah, yeah, and
And
which
then
I think would have
the
been
Batman
great.
moment, of course.
Which would have been great for a mid-season finale, but when you're in the finale and you're taking time to do these fun references, like I'm all for, and that's the same voice actor as the Spectacular Spider-Man
Mm,
voice, you know, which is I think it's Josh Keaton. I think I could be wrong. I don't remember, but you know, you do like that's great. I just also wonder, are you starting to like, are you slowing down this? Like, this is the finale. Like, are you slowing down? Like, as much as I love it, does that scene with
no.
Spider-Man, does that help Mark's journey in the moment?
Right. Right.
You know, and then it just kind of feels like that should have been the finale.
Fuck,
And
man. If they had been able to, what if they had gotten Miles Morales from the Amazing Spider-Man? That would have been the version of them working with Marvel, like
yeah,
in the comics. Like if they'd
yeah,
have him show up, that would have been.
been crazy. I mean,
Even if
hey,
they could have just done it off screen like they did with Batman and just had like a portion of him like glitching like they do in the movie. Yeah.
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 Yeah, hey, I'm all for it, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
it
Anyway,
just kind of feels like the whole thing. No, I'm sorry. The whole thing just kind of feels, like you said, a little mismanagement. And maybe if I read the comic book, maybe it's better than the comic book, and like they're like trying to, maybe they're rectifying the issues in the comic book. I don't know.
yeah, you know,
Um,
and I think I want to highlight what you said though too. I think you're right that season one and probably the final season of this show will be the easiest to figure out.
100%,
You know
100%.
exactly where you're going. Everything is leading to this. There's no all these other multi arcs kind of stuff going on. And so maybe it is just like they're still figuring out how to tell these mid season arcs.
Well,
Because
I
they're just
guess,
not as straightforward.
and this is where my like the problem with the break and just all the other things I watch remind me. Were there other times in season two where Mark was pushing himself, where he was almost being like his dad? Because I feel like I don't remember it being like that unless he was fighting a Viltrumite or
The
something, which
only
almost
times I can
doesn't
think of is
count.
kind of when he just wouldn't listen to Cecil.
Yeah, which
And
is
Cecil would be
like,
like, don't go to space. And he just fucking went to space. And like
yeah,
that kind of
but he would
stuff.
do, yeah, but he would do it like because it was a good thing, right? I mean, like
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was
No,
always like a noble
but it
reason. So
was
like, I
always
think,
that kind of moment that you were like, that at least Cecil was like, you're acting kind of like Nolan right now kind of moment. And I
yeah, but
think,
it's
yeah,
not though. I mean, like
no, it's
he's
not.
act. I mean, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not to the extent where like it makes me feel like Mark has the potential to be because there's like the argument like everyone's like, oh, the next like Hitler or whatever, or should we kill baby Hitler? And the answer is no,
Sure.
you should not kill baby Hitler. Not for time travel reasons, not for anything else, but the reality is almost anybody has the potential to become a Hitler with the right environment and other
Yeah,
biological factors.
you're
And
right.
so like and so I think my point is like they needed to keep pushing that and to
Mm,
lead to Angstrom being killed, whereas like Mark really dealing with the fact that and having him meet his dad mid-season kind of
yeah,
muddy the waters for me a little bit in that
sure.
arc, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. And I agree. I think to me, I kind of see that arc as different. What I see kind of from it is that like Mark is terrified he could become his dad. But in my opinion, you're right. Anyone could become Hitler, but Mark's past the point of being able to become Hitler, unless like someone comes and kills everyone he loves. And like, honestly, like, what one of my favorite moments of the season is, it's like when the Guardians find Mark, I guess after he's in the different dimension or whatever, and they find him and they're like, oh, and they're like from the future though, and they're like, you wouldn't like what you turned into. When they talk about like, oh, you did find your way back 60 years later, and in our timeline, it sounds like he became a psycho, like just went insane from being alone for 60 years, and then probably came back as a villain, right? Like, so to me, there's this element of like, Mark's constantly afraid of that. I'm not really afraid of that for him. It's just because of his mom, because his mom raised him, and like, Mark isn't a Viltrumite culturally. He's got Viltrumite blood.
The show is also called Invincible,
yes.
So
and so I do think and yes, and he's the main character, and we don't expect the main character to fall to the darkness, at least by the end. Maybe he has a moment, but like,
but I don't know. There's a version too where, again, I haven't read the comic book. Maybe the comic book, like whatever. I think this is probably pretty close to the comic, other than like events being rearranged. But I don't know that. But you could also have him fight Mark, another version, evil Mark. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's versions to do this where I just feel like it'd have been stronger. I think when you get a character to, I don't know. I just think they didn't land. And now season 3 feels like it's going to be, he's living with the guilt of killing Angstrom, and like what? I don't know. I don't know, actually. I don't. Cecil gives him a pass at the end. Obviously, that doesn't stick, nor would it, should, nor
have they
should it,
said
or would
how
it.
many seasons there's going to be yet?
No, I think like there's math out there where you're like, if this covered this much of the comic book and there's this much left, maybe there's like 6 to 10
but
seasons.
You never know how they're going to expand or deflate some arcs to fit. So
inflate others.
It almost makes me a little worried. Like, I wish kind of they would already say, hey, it's going to be 6 seasons or something like that. That tells me they have the whole show planned out. This season, it almost makes me worry, like, how many more seasons do they actually have planned out before they start the next one? Or is it a little more, we're flying by the seat of our pants, let's just see what works for this season, how much we can fit in? I hope it's not that way. Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I think, of course, I want season 3 tomorrow. If Invincible came on once a week forever, just constantly, I would be happy. That would make me happy. But there's a little worry, right? There's a little, like, coming off of season 1, there was like, I have no worry. I mean, just make it forever. I want it forever. If it's at this quality, never turn it off. And after this season, it's like, whew, okay, really enjoyed that. There was a lot of good things here, but like, I hope this isn't a sign of more trouble. You know what I mean? Like,
you know how many times we've had this conversation with every show we've like, I mean, look at Mandalorian or everything. It's always like, we're like, it's the gospel, and then we had this conversation. We're like, man, we need to know how many seasons are left. We don't. Yeah.
And unfortunately, The Mandalorian is not a great example of them doing well as the later it went. You know what I mean? I think The Mandalorian's one that kind of kept dropping the ball progressively a little more.
And mainly just season 3. I love season 1 and 2. I think season 2 is great, actually.
It's just everything that happens after season 2, including the Boba Fett episode.
Book of Boba Fett. Yeah.
And now we got this movie coming out. I'm just like, I have no idea what expectations to set for this. I don't know if I'll like it. I don't know if it'll be good. I don't know anything. You know what I mean? And so we're not there with Invincible, right? Like, I have more faith in Invincible to deliver me something that's at least going to be fun to watch and entertaining.
Well, we're also getting a season or movies of Invincible, like live action movies.
When is that coming up soon?
Well, it's been like almost like
development.
The same time they announced the cartoon, it's been actively discussed. Like, they're also actively working on the live act, like basically the script for it. Like they plan on doing
Robert
both.
Kirkman is?
Yeah. Like it's been
kind of worries me. I'm kind of like, guys, let's finish the cartoon, let's make it perfect, and then let's adapt it.
It feels a little bit like George R. R. Martin, like stopping writing his books and then helping on the TV show. A little different because Robert Kirkman wrote the comic and it's been done for a while.
Yeah,
and they're finished. A movie should be theoretically much easier to write time-wise than a season of television.
Just wondering, I mean, like, how do you adapt it? I mean, I guess you can
that's what I was going to ask you. Where would you would assume the end of the movie is Mark versus Omni Man. Like it's
Yeah.
the end of season one.
Yeah. Or end
I
of
mean
movie
that's
one. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it seems like to me you would do you have
You
Mark
just
getting his
streamline it.
powers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you just streamline it where you see Omni Man,
The end of Act One or the inciting incident is Omni Man killing the Guardians of the Galaxy. Right. Like that's
or it's the beginning of Act Four, right? And Mark
sure.
witnesses it, and he has to stop
Sure.
Omni Man,
Sure.
and
Either
then
way, yeah,
he
yeah. I
loses.
mean, I guess to me, the only way I imagine it being, it's like it's got the goriness of like guns, um,
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad, but less silly. And I mean, Invincible can be silly sometimes, but I think it is mostly more serious than like that. But
Yeah.
I guess it's like that's kind of the tone I'm imagining. I guess that could work for that, and that level of kind of just if you can make the gore look that good, I think it
I
could
would
work. It's
love to
just, I
direct that
mean,
movie.
who do you fucking cast as Omni Man? I mean, J.K. Simmons is like it would be so hard not for it to be J.K. Simmons, but he does not have the look of it at all. I mean, he's an old man.
He's in shape, but um, God,
I mean,
who would I
it could
cast?
have, but I mean, like the look of Omni Man.
He looks like young. It looks like young J.K. Simmons, like Spider Man, J.
Sure.
Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons. What it
Yeah,
looks
with the
like,
mustache especially. Yeah,
and the hair and everything.
I mean, I guess they might try to de-age him, but
I don't see that
I
happening.
don't like that idea typically.
I don't know. I keep thinking about. Well, I don't. I wouldn't. Maybe not John Cena. I think I want John Cena for All Might for My Hero Academia. That's what I want.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who
I
would
want to save him for that. I think he'd be a good one.
I mean, honestly, Henry Cavill has the look. Henry Cavill is the look.
Damn, I mean, like, obviously it's a little on the nose,
Right.
but I love it though.
And what a great way to kind of
hell, he already did play in Batman v Superman, am I right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be kind of a funny commentary of him playing this like Superman character after he played Superman.
Well, he already did that, right? I mean, like, I just think that he already did play
in the Justice League.
On all of them, dude.
Yeah.
I love him. God love Henry Cavill.
But it would be funny if he played a role that was literally a critique of Superman. And I don't think he would do it, but man, he is the look. He is you can just imagine the slight gray coming onto his sideburns and the strong mustache. And
type in Henry Cavill Argyle, and then you're like,
it's that look. Yes, yeah.
It's kind of like maybe not that tall, but kind of like that look.
Yes.
Also not a good movie in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know, man. I want it tomorrow, and there's a big part of me that's wanting to read all of Invincible, but then I'm like, God dang, I don't want to know because then I don't want to know. I own the first volume digitally, and I did before the show ever come out. And I read the first 4 issues, and it was good. It was actually very simplistic.
Okay.
It felt like it was very like minimalist compared to like the show and everything else. When I remember, even the art style, everything was very minimalist. And the dialogue was minimalist, all of it. So anyway, I don't know. I just I know I want it now, and I might. I mean, God, is there a world we don't get this in like September, October
of this year?
Yeah,
that seems soon to me.
Really?
I think it's going to be next. When did season 2 started back in January, right?
Or season 2?
Like, when did we get the first half? It was this year.
Like October. No.
Was it? Okay. Okay.
We had a break in between.
Yeah, I guess I thought the break
November,
was
like October to like March.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, I guess
that's a normal TV.
Comic-Con comes around in like what, July? I bet we'll know by then.
Yeah, I mean that's a normal TV schedule. Are we get a season a year?
They promised a season a year.
Well, they promised they promised a smaller gap from 2 to 3 than there was from season 1 to 2. That's what they promised.
Gotcha.
I don't know what that means though. That means it could be like spring of 2025. So a year from now.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I feel like we had like a year and a half.
Could be almost a year from when it ended. Yeah.
From like season 1 to 2, I think. Anyway, I don't know. I'm curious about it. I know we have X-Men 97 on the horizon.
Yes.
It's
Which
going
has gotten better. and more interesting as it's going on.
I think it's gotten more interesting for sure. Fallout. I'm almost on episode 1, and we'll talk about that pretty soon. I
Yes.
got to start watching Shogun again. We've been
So
on a
good.
or Kimley's been like on a Purdue Pharma kick, and so
Purdue Pharma. Is that all the like the dope sick stuff that's like about them?
yeah. Oh, I watched Dope Sick,
Is
when
it
it come
good?
out, which is Dope Sick's great. It's
I
on
mean,
Hulu.
it's got a great cast.
Oh, dude, it's good. And then, but then there's the one called Painkillers on Netflix that just came out last fall. It's
Mm.
the same guy who made Lonesome Survivor or Lone Survivor and like Deepwater Horizon and all these
Oh,
Mark
okay.
Wahlberg movies. And he's a cool, or Peter Berg. He's a cool guy, cool director. But he made this show, and it feels like it's the more Hollywood flashy kind of version and like the more
Ah,
probably goofy version of it all.
gotcha.
And I say goofy, it's pretty serious, but it was
Sure.
okay. Kimberly really liked it. And I was
There's
like,
a
well,
movie.
is it like an 8 episode Netflix
Oh,
show?
okay. Okay.
It got like not great reviews. Like 50, they got like
Sure.
really mixed reviews. Dope Sick is like really high. I mean, Michael Keaton won an Emmy for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, well, if you like that, I think Dope Sick's better. And of course, we just started Dope Sick. So
Good.
we're now I'm watching Dope Sick again, which is it's good. It's
I mean,
good.
it's
So
Michael Keaton putting on what seems like a pretty good masterclass of acting. It's hard not to find ways to appreciate that every time you see it.
100%. And
Yeah.
also, like, I just watched the movie last week. Um, I bought it actually. Michael Keaton, he directed his first directorial debut.
A
And
recent movie?
yeah, it just went in theaters and it just dropped like VOD where like you're
Mm.
paying like premium price to get it. And I did because I wanted to watch it. And so it's Michael Keaton and it's pretty good. It's like an assassin who gets like dementia and he's like
Oh,
he's
interesting.
basically trying to settle. It's got James Marsden in it. It's got some
Hmm.
actually it's got freaking Al Pacino in it.
Wow. That's a pretty good list of, I mean, just those three right there. Michael
It's
Keaton.
got it got good reviews and stuff. It's like a
Yeah.
nice little. It's kind of like an indie thriller, but Michael Keaton
Is
being
it
like
like
an
a 90
assassin.
minute kind of like
I think it's like a
smaller
little closer.
budget
It's
movie?
closer to 2 hours. Definitely smaller budget, but
Okay. Yeah.
it's not bad. But it's like him just has dementia, or he's getting dementia, and he's got a couple weeks
I
left,
like
and
it.
he's like, yeah, and
That's
he's
a good
trying to like
premise.
settle some debts, kind of thing.
I will say, yeah, so Shogun finishes next week. We are so excited, but also so sad that it's a limited series and we're not getting anything else
Yeah,
after this. But we also started watching in between that is The Gentleman on Netflix. Have you seen anything about this or heard anything
I
about
know
this?
what it is. Yeah,
It's pretty damn good. It's
okay.
it's like it's kind of a comedy thriller, I would say in some ways, but
Mm.
like it's good. I mean, like we didn't. It's Guy Ritchie. I don't know if you knew that. It's a Guy Ritchie series. He directs it all and wrote it all. And
Well, I think he also is it based off the movie The Gentleman?
I don't know.
I mean, he has the whatever the other gentleman
The film.
movie coming out like 2 weeks or so or a week or so.
There's
But I
a
think there's one.
new Gentleman movie about to come out.
Well, no, it's like 2 years old now, but it's got like
Oh yeah,
all
it's got
the
like
it's
Matthew
Hugh Grant.
McConaughey and
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey. I watched the first like it's got
Jeremy
Taylor. No,
Strong's in it. That's interesting.
yeah, I
Hugh
think Taylor,
Grant.
not Taylor Kitsch, but the guy who's funny enough is in Painkillers. Can't think of his name. He was
And
Gambit.
oh okay.
Maybe it's Taylor Kitsch.
I
Anyway,
wonder did it do okay?
well,
Reception.
it did like UK numbers, which is like standard for the Guy
It did
Ritchie stuff.
115.2 worldwide.
Anyway, is it called The Gentleman? Is it
It's called The Gentleman. It's Guy Ritchie. I'm
okay.
assuming this is just this is like
Just
um
expanded of that? Yeah.
or a restarting it. None of the
Right,
same
right.
actors are in it.
Right. That's what I meant. Yeah, a reboot or something. Okay. So anyway, I need to. Remember watching the opening scene of the movie. I mean, like, I don't. This isn't for me, but maybe I need to go back and watch this show.
The show's really fun. It's kind of got that Guy Ritchie editing style, writing words on the screen, kind of quick cuts, quick camera moves sometimes. The acting's great. I would say it's got the guy I only knew him from my I don't even think we only got through one episode, but Catherine was watching, I guess, like maybe it was the time traveler's wife or a little bit or something like that, and he was the time traveler dude or the main man. But it's
Gotcha.
Theo James
I know
is
the
the
name.
lead. He's got a very recognizable face. He's got a very like perfect British model face. But then his brother Daniel Ings plays his brother, and he's fantastic in it. It's got style. It's got a really nice pacing to it. The comedy is very unexpected, and like it feels like in some ways like a comedy. It's a crime show. It's about drug syndicates and this rich English family and all these kinds of things. It's worth watching, at least getting through the first episode. And I think if you enjoy the first episode, you'll enjoy the series. So
yeah, I'm gonna check it out. I saw that on there, but I honestly just thought it was the movie. I didn't realize it was.
Well, I'd heard good reviews, and I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out. And then turns out pretty damn good.
We're making news on freaking Mr. and Mrs. Smith season 2, dude. That was so good.
Yeah, I mean, last I heard, there wasn't even a confirmation we'd get one, right?
And so I'm saying, like, where's that at? I feel like they're just not going to say anything about it.
I mean, if they just leave it, they totally made it in a way that they could just leave it, and it will stand as like a incredible season of limited series television. If they
perfect season of TV for sure.
It's like, as far as being like a relationship show that's about something else, yes, that's like that's textbook how you do it. They teach it in class. Good.
Yeah, please. I've only seen the first episode of 3 Body Problem.
Okay. Yeah. We finished that. That's good.
Yeah, I haven't.
What'd you think?
I think I told you, but I like it and stuff. I just had time. I just been so many things, and like I started Halo.
Okay, yeah, I remember you mentioning that.
And I got half. I don't know what's with me. I mean, like I've seen half of episode 1 of Fallout. I've seen the first episode of 3 Body Problem. I've seen half of it. I've seen half of season 2 of episode 1 of Halo. Let me tell you this though, the first half, at least the first fight scenes, whatever, of season 2 of Halo, I'm like, holy shit, that is what I was wanting to watch all season 1.
I mean, that has been that it's much better. That seems to be the consistent commentary from people that have watched it. But I will say that this Fallout show has unleashed a new round of shitting on it because it's a really successful game adaptation.
Oh, I'm sure.
So like I think that is true. Right now, most of what I'm seeing about it is people dumping on it just because Fallout's so good. And they're saying Halo, hey, look what they did. Why was this so hard? Kind of comment.
Well, the show has, unfortunately, just from season 1 alone, it's like painted itself into this weird corner of like its own mythology and stuff like that. So it feels like so far it hasn't even escaped that still, but I'm just saying, like, there's no way it's like it will ever reach Fallout. I've only seen the first episode of Fallout, or almost first episode. It's Fallout's already better. Like, there's no question about it. But and because also it's smart and that it's still like in universe canon, right? It's not contradicting or anything.
There's been many people that have never watched or never played a single Fallout game that really like the show. The fact that it's reaching people outside of the fandom, it's just a good show. It also happens to be in Fallout world. That's what you always need to do. And I think, to me, it's like I don't know if the Halo show can ever get over the inception of that show is that there was a different new IP sci-fi show that they were trying to get greenlit. They couldn't do it, so they threw a Halo logo on it, and it got greenlit. And if that's not the most garage sale ass like planning for a TV show that I've ever heard, it's just like I'm like, I'm not sure you'll ever if that's the foundation for this show, to me it's doomed. Like, I don't know how you can ever get past that. Like, maybe
I guess I didn't realize that, or I forgot that was
that's how it came about. Is that like, and it's just like, that is the most just like, who thought this was a good way to like take care of the Halo IP? Like, that's such a financial decision of like, oh, well, we've already, this will be super cheap and we don't have to redo all these resources, and we'll just take all this shit we've been working on and kind of put a new spin on it. Like, that's such a like, oh, that's a smart budget decision, but as a creative decision, it is like void of like inspiration or of any kind of thing that makes good creative content, in my opinion.
Well, I'm assuming, if I can get my ducks in order, next week will be us talking about Fallout.
Sure.
And
Fallout or Shogun or 3 Body Problem. Pick which one.
Sure. It'll probably be Fallout because I probably can burn to that faster. But
funnily enough, they're all like 8-episode series.
They're all 8-episode series. Yeah.
Well, Shogun's 10. So.
I'm sure we have the time today to discuss this particular question. I think I know where you stand on it, but I think I might be able to persuade you. Is leading into next week, think about should video game adaptations only be like side stories that enhance the already existing game universe,
Sure.
or should they be straight up adaptations? I think.
Within the last year, we've gotten almost perfect examples of each kind.
Of each kind, yes, exactly. And
in The Last of Us and in Fallout, and both post-apocalyptic America movies shows, which is a funny
and radically different from each other too.
Oh my god, tone-wise, it's like it's completely
wise.
different. Yeah.
Writing, I mean everything. So anyway, it's something to think about as we go to next week. How can our listeners write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know what you think or thought of Invincible Season 2. Yes, that is the episode. That is what we talked about before we got sidetracked. But Invincible Season 2. Are you kind of on our side of the fence where you still loved moment to moment, in the moment you were still enjoying yourself, but looking back, there's definitely some issues or some things that didn't quite work for you? Or you know what? Maybe we're crazy. Maybe we are just absolute clueless idiots and it was a perfect season and you need to tell us why. You can do that at bit.ly/241mail.
Or you can do it in the comment section below. Yes, again, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/@2for1studios. It's the best place to consume all of the content. Daniel has a good episode. I'm looking forward to talking about Fallout. Looking forward, and it'll be interesting because I haven't played the games.
Dune 2 is almost, it's already on VOD, I think.
Dude, I'm so mad you haven't seen it yet.
I know. I'm mad at myself. It's just, it's hard. It's hard to find the time and motivation to go see a movie by yourself. That's probably part of it for me.
We're different people for sure.
We are. But I'm very excited to see that in general. There's a lot to talk about in the next few months, and there's more that I feel like, I mean, House of Dragons only a month or two away, coming back.
2 months. It's 2 months away as of yesterday.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up that will be fun to talk about. Deadpool 3 is this summer. What is it? Do we have a date? What's the release date for that?
July 26th. It's my birthday movie.
3 months away from that. You know, we're getting close to the summer blockbuster season, and there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about in the TV, film, entertainment world.
We got plenty on the horizon. I'm not super worried about that. And I mean, again, you need to watch Godzilla versus Kong. It's pretty.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's the only one I haven't seen in that series, so I gotta keep up.
It's
I haven't seen all of Monarch, but yeah.
I haven't either. We're getting to season 2 of that as well, and some more spinoffs. So that was announced at CinemaCon last week.
It must have done pretty well with the viewership.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're doing well. I mean, Godzilla -1 did great for that market. Monarch's doing great on the TV side, like critically, and just everyone loved it. And then also, this one's closing on 500 million now.
It's funny that like giant kaiju battle movies are kind of becoming a hot genre again. Like, you know what I mean?
One thing I almost did the night I saw Godzilla Godzilla X Kong the Empire, I almost come home and almost made a Lethal Weapon inspired poster. Like I took their heads and did the exact same poses and like the color grade and everything. Awesome. I almost did it because that's what the movie is. It's just straight up buddy cop. It's awesome, dude. It's so good. It's so fun.
I'm like trying to imagine. I'm just like buddy cop, King Kong, and Godzilla.
Dude, it's so good. Like
I'm just imagining my face, the opening of the movie is like Lethal Weapon 2, where it's just panning across the pictures of them hanging out.
Dude, you can't imagine. Like it's one of those things like where you cannot go into this being like, you're not getting Godzilla King of the Monsters. You're going to get just the plot. It is what it is.
Do they fist bump?
Gosh dang. They don't have to. They don't have to fist bump.
I'm glad. I don't think they needed to fist bump.
But but like just if you just want to see giant monsters fight each other and do cool shit and like and also make Kong is like the ultimate action hero, then this is your movie.
It's kind of like this is what cinema started out as in so many ways, is you could go watch things that were impossible. You know what I mean? Like you get to go watch things that there is no real world analogy to this, and it's just pure spectacle. To me, these movies are pure spectacle, and it's like, but they're doing it just perfectly. That it's just like junk. Not junk food. Junk food's a bad word. It's just like your favorite, just food. It's just like Yeah, it's great. It's
You
great.
can
They
say
don't need
junk
to add
food.
anything. Well, I
It's
don't.
fine.
Yeah, it junk.
I know.
Food.
I know what you mean.
Junk. But
Yeah, it's fine. They got their. I mean, again, if you're looking for Godzilla 1 or even King of the Monsters, you're not going to get that
okay.
because
Okay,
I
that's
feel
good.
like
That's good. I think that sets my expectations in a more open state.
this is more the end of Godzilla versus Kong, but like times 10.
Okay, cool. So just more pure battles on
More
screen.
pure battles and
Yeah.
just it's
That's
pretty
fun. It's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
ready
fun.
to watch it. I'm sure that will come
All
to
right.
Max pretty soon.
Yeah, it probably will. All right, my name is Donovan Thompson,
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.